Yep, thank you very much, Aparachdi. Yeah, I've got very fond memories of that house in Cambridge where I fell down the stairs and damaged my spine on one occasion. But anyway, that was the least of it. So I'm going to ask the panelists to come along, and as I think they'll be spotlighted as we introduce them, I'll just say their name and then I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So we've got Dama Kumara there in Sydney, who, as we were saying before, is an Englishman living in Sydney. And we've got Samachita, who's a Sydney sider living in Birmingham. So let's have Samachita. And then we've got Arta Baden, who's in Liverpool or near Liverpool in England. And we have the lovely Arya Ketu in Nagpur in Maharashtra, India. I haven't missed anybody, have I? That's it. Yeah. So I really want to say thank you to all of you for being willing to be in the panel, but especially Samachit, who some of you might have heard when we were chatting beforehand, has agreed with, I think, about 5 minutes notice to join this panel because unfortunately, oh gosh, her name's going out of my head.
Arya Drishti.
Thank you. Arya Drishti from the USA unfortunately wasn't able to join us because her mum's ill and she's had to go up to Canada to be with her. So thanks very much, Samachita, for you're a trooper. We knew you would jump in. Okay, so I'm just going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves. And I'm going to ask you to stick to 2 minutes. And I'm going to time your 2 minutes and wave at you. So could you just tell us a little bit who you are, where you live, how you live maybe, you know, are you in a community, do you live in your own family, whatever, and maybe just a few words about what Sangha means to you in your life. So I'm going to do it in alphabetical order. So that would start with Artavadan. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, Artavadan.
Okay, thanks, Arami. So yeah, I'm Artavadan and I live in Liverpool, which for those of you who don't know, is in the northwest of England. And it's a sort of, we like to think of it as the People's Republic of Liverpool, because we're a little bit different from everybody else. No one else likes us, so we have our own little republic here. I live on my own. I've recently moved here, actually. I was living in Manchester, which is about 40 miles away from Liverpool. And there's a big Sangha in Manchester. And there's a small, very small Sangha in Liverpool. Although the Sangha, there's been a Buddhist centre in Liverpool for probably 30 years, but it's a very small centre. What else can I tell you? I work for the International Council. I used to be chair at the Manchester Buddhist Centre. A couple of years ago, I became president of Sudarshan Aloka in New Zealand. Yeah, I don't know what else to say really about myself. Yeah, I've moved over to Liverpool because my parents live here and they're elderly and not doing very well. So I wanted to be closer to them primarily. Sangha, what Sangha means to me, well, I think in a way Savannah Dee described it very well in the meditation. You know, Sangha in the sense of the Sangha that I'm practicing, well, it's my context. It's the context of my life. And it's really important to me. I need context. I need context in order to practice. So all of you and everyone else in our Triratna Sangha basically provide a context for me to live my spiritual life, and it would be very difficult without it. I think I could live the spiritual life without it, but it would be very difficult. Over and out.
Perfect timing. Thank you so much, Arya. So you can actually get quite a lot into 2 minutes. Arya Ketu, let's go over to you in India.
Hello to everyone. Jai Bhim and Namo Buddhaya. It's hard to introduce myself within 2 minutes, but I tried because it's partly because of Indian habit. We speak a lot. So My name is Dhammachari Aryaketu, and I live in Nagpur, which is the central part of India. I am married, live with family. So Nagpur, we have a lovely Sangha. I love Sangha in Nagpur. We have more than 100 order members living in Nagpur, and they are working through 3 centers, helping, practicing, and spreading the Dhamma in Nagpur. So that's lovely to see the Sangha in Nagpur. Yes, I enjoy chapter meeting very much. I love my chapter, and I have a very good connection with the member of chapter. That's wonderful. And I also running Right Livelihood Project, Arya Loka Computer Education, which is the IT training center, and I enjoyed. Every year, 1,000 students benefit from this training center. And the Sangha, I love Sangha because it's a source of inspiration. I spent almost 35 years of my life in Sangha, and I have realized that I can't live without Sangha, because that gives me inspiration, make me capable to face the challenges of life and free from greed, hatred, and delusion. I hope the time is over. Thank you.
Thank you. See, you actually managed to say a lot, Aryaketu, so that was lovely. And
So
yeah,
it's a good practice.
it's a very good practice for those of you who, like myself, tend to talk quite a lot. So thank you for that. Okay, well, let's move then to Sydney and hear from Dhammakumara.
Yeah, thanks. So yes, my name is Dhammakumara. I live in Sydney. I've been in Sydney for about just over 3 years, as Parami outed me as though I am originally from the UK. I actually came to Sydney originally to be involved with getting more young people involved in Triratna, in this side of the world. And I was really engaged in that work for a couple of years. And then about a year ago, I became the chairman of the Sydney Buddhist Centre. So that's the main focus of my attention at the moment. In terms of what Sangha means to me, it's such an interesting question, you know, because there's the sort of ideal Sangha, isn't there? You know, the 1,000-armed Avalokiteshvara and so on. And then there's the sort of the Sangha that we're in, you know, the us going to our centres and meeting on Zooms and so on. And I think what Sangha means to me is the sort of continuous work of trying to move that second type of Sangha into that first type of Sangha. You know, that's my life. That's what I do. That's why I get out of bed in the morning. Yeah, that's what that means to me. That sort of continuous striving. There you go, done with time to spare.
26 seconds to go. Thank you. And coming back up to the UK, go over to Samachita in Birmingham.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll use up your 26 seconds. Thanks, Dhammakumara. Yeah, so I'm back in Birmingham, where I was for a long time, for about 20 years. After a little stint of 5 years in Australia, where I was working for the Sydney Buddhist Centre as chair for a few years, 3 and a bit. And I was originally from Sydney. Yeah, and oh gosh, I just want to say that last night I was on a Zoom session, a Sangha Day session celebrating with the Russian Sangha, and Aryaketu was there as well. So a few of us sort of with some connection with Russia, hosted by Suvana Veera. So there were a couple of Sergeys there, and a couple of people from Ireland, and, you know, Aryaketu from India. and me in Britain. So, you know, to me, Sangha that's a kind of symbol of what Sangha is. It's this connection across space. You could maybe say across time too. Yeah, there's just some sort of thread that runs through this very imperfect, I suppose, you know, as Dhammakamara was saying, the two Sanghas, there's the kind of real Sangha with all the ups and downs of our relationships with one another. And then this kind of thread of connection that is so mysterious, because sometimes it seems a million miles from my actual experience of people, but it's there and it's nowhere else. So I think that's what keeps me in. And just another sort of plug for online things. I think that's been the little silver lining in the whole COVID situation that we've faced as a planet, the fact that we're much more connected across the planet. And just finally, hello, Maitrijit. I feel I've got to know Maitrijit in India through these online events as well. Yeah. Thank you.
That's lovely. Yeah, so lovely to hear a little bit from each of you. And actually, yesterday afternoon, I was on a Sangha event in Mérida, Venezuela, where we had the handover of chair from Vajranatha, who was doing that in absence, although he wasn't living there, and a little team of them handing it over to Abhayasara, who's the Dhammacharini who lives there. So yeah, I agree. It was lovely to be able to tune into that. And there were people there from Wales, Scotland, England, Mexico, Argentina, and Venezuela. So internationality, one of the most wonderful things we have, I think, in Triratna. Okay, so there are a few questions that we're going to have a little look at in the panel. And the theme of today is may our communication be Sangha. So again, as others have said, it's lovely, ideal, it's beautiful, isn't it? May our communication with each other be Sangha. So we won't have time to hear from everybody, but maybe a couple of you would like to just let me know you'd like to respond to that. So what do you think when you hear that? May our communication be Sangha? You know, what does it mean to you? Is it real? Is it ideal? Can you do it? Can we do it? So whoever would like to jump in.
Yeah, I would like to share something. Be our communication, be a Sangha. It means for me, our communication should be based on truth. Of course, what is truth? Truth is the Dhamma, and it's based on kind, helpful, meaningful, and harmonious. So this is the kind of ideal communication we should have within the Sangha context and within the Sangha. I struggle a lot to speak truth with kindness, with and helpful and meaningful. I found it difficult. And I observed in the Sangha, some people do care about harmony and they hide the truth. And I just feel upset. and I don't know how to say, but still, if and some people do care about the truth and they don't care about the harmony. So that's very, very challenging, very challenging. And I'm still struggling. I am still struggling how to way forward to have a truth and to keep harmony.
Yeah. So that's a really interesting point, Arya Ketu, and I suspect it's something that many of us will relate to. But I guess what occurs to me is that real harmony won't happen if people are not actually telling the truth. So yeah, it's finding a way to do that, isn't it? To be really truthful, but without alienating other people or polarising with other people. So that's a really good point to start with. Thank you, Arya Ketu. Anybody else like to come in on that topic? May our communication with one? Yeah, Arya Abdavadan. I've just renamed you, Arya Vadan.
Thank you.
And I see Samachita after you, yeah.
Thank you. In some ways, I would like to just pick up on what Arya Ketu was saying. And it's about the sometimes, truth without harmony is problematic and harmony without truth is problematic. And I sense in a way the only solution to that is actually us building stronger relationships with each other so that we can trust each other's intentions. And I think when we trust each other's intentions, we can say difficult things. But when we don't trust each other's intentions, we can say very little without it being misinterpreted. So I think in a way that it just points again towards the importance of investing in Sangha and investing in our relationships so that we do trust each other and trust each other's intentions. Because really, I'd like to be in a Sangha where we can have conflict, but that conflict not leading to disharmony. Because I think conflict is healthy and creative and or can be, but only when there's trust between us. So we have to invest really in our relationships to make sure that we trust each other's intentions.
Thank you. Great point. Yeah. Samachita, I noticed you had your wee digital hand up before.
I did. I don't know that I think it's just been so well said already, but maybe I was going to make a point about communication generally within the Sangha context that, I guess we have to go back to the purpose of Sangha, which maybe there's many purposes, but one has to be that it helps an individual to develop. So whatever communication in some way raises the level of consciousness of the participants in the communication could be considered Sangha. Some communication that brings clarity, brings harmony, it's a sort of umbrella term, I suppose, raising the level of consciousness. But yeah, anyway, very well said to Arthavadan and Arya Ketu. Thank you.
Actually, given that 3 of the 4 of you have spoken, Dhammakamara, and they've been fairly brief, why don't you tell us what you think?
Oh, I was thinking about, it's such a beautiful line from the dedication ceremony, that, isn't it? And the 2 lines before it, I think, are quite important. May our mind become Buddha, may our thought become Dharma, may our communication be Sangha. I think you need those 3 acting together, really. You need, your mind and your thought and where you're at to be in a sort of spiritually sound place before communication can even become anything remotely like Sangha. So often our minds and our thoughts, and therefore what comes out of our mouths, is in quite a different place altogether. Thinking about ourselves, and even just, when you're talking to someone, half the time you're just waiting for your turn to talk. Communication can't get anything close to Sangha under those circumstances. We need to do a lot of, and I notice this so often in, whenever people start talking about communication and how our communication should be and so on, it so quickly becomes about how other people should communicate with us, like, oh, they should be like this and they should be like that. And really, I think we need to focus a lot more on us, a lot more on where, what our frame of mind is. And, if you can do those first 2 things, mind, Buddha, thought, Dharma, then communication will be Sangha straight afterwards. Very straightforward.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. It's good to bring us back to remembering the obvious. I remember a good friend of mine once said, when I was preparing a talk, never overlook the obvious. It's always good to hear it. So thank you for that, for everybody. So we've talked a bit about how communication can, how it can be Sangha and how sometimes it falls a bit short of that. And I think that idea of harmony and truth is a really interesting one. And I think that's something maybe people can pick up in the breakout rooms later, because I'm sure for most of us that will have some resonance, I would imagine. So another question that comes from that, I guess, is like, so we've kind of focused on individual communication, one-to-one communication, maybe. So what does Sangha look like when it's collective? What's the best of Sangha when it's collective? And again, I'll just let MD come in that wants to, as long as we leave enough time, because I have one question I want to ask all of you to end with. So Yeah, what does collective Sangha look like at its best? What does that mean? What does it look like? You've all been quite involved in collective and are involved in collective Sangha situations, so you've all got quite a bit of experience, I'm sure, of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, yeah, Atavadan, go for it.
Yeah, if I may, can I present an image rather than words, and sort of, and I know some of you will have heard this before from a talk I gave, but some time ago I did a painting. I made a painting. I was living at Gukyaloka in Spain. I was very happy and very appreciative of the Sangha. And I was trying to represent it in a painting, and I sort of wanted to do a drawing of myself, my arms stretched out on a beach looking at the sun. My sadhana practice is Amitabha, and it was just a sense of appreciation. And I was in silhouette looking at the sun. But unfortunately, I drew the arms too long. So what I did is I drew people in next to me. So there was a crowd of people on the beach in silhouette, looking out to the sun, looking out to Amitabha. And in a way, for me, that it was a mistake that happened. But it really represented to me what Sangha means. It's sort of where we're all dropping our egos and really looking towards the same ideal. So we're all pointing in the same direction. I think that's what, but doing that together, that's what Sangha is for me, really, on a collective level.
That's gorgeous. And I love that it came from what you're calling a mistake. That in a certain way, you didn't aim for that, and yet you ended up with this really lovely image. Thank you, that's lovely. Okay, anybody else like to tell us a little bit about collective? What does collective Sangha look like for you when it's at its best? Arya Ketu, you've unmuted, so.
Yeah, as a collective Sangha, it looks like, Bhante described very well in the Essential Sangha Rakshita. I go through that. The Sangha really provide the right conditions, the right atmosphere to grow as an individual. And also Sangha provides the Kalyan Mitrata, the friendship. It's a warm human connection and helps to grow as an individual. And the third thing, it's a clarity. It's a sunlight, clarity like sunlight. Bhante described it. And the fourth is the Dharma, it's the reins of the Dharma. So this is the way Bhante described really very well. And it's touched by the Bhante, the way he described. And I like the centers in India. Some are struggling, but some are really doing very good work, especially in Nagpur. I really love them all. Those are working for creating this kind of collective Sangha. And I am also the part of that. That helps many people and all the human beings free from suffering. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, lovely. Interest in those images of nature that we got from both of you, sand, sun, sea, rain, reminds me of Bhante's talks he gave in the USA when he was launching the drama of Cosmic Enlightenment. And he talks about the 6 things that are needed for the growth of the Sangha. And I'm not going to try and remember them offhand, but they include the sun and rain and a seed and etc., etc. So that's really lovely images. So either of the other two of you want to say anything on that particular topic? We've got time to hear from both of you briefly.
I'd say just a brief thing. I suppose we've got to get our individual ego out the way. And that's easier said than done, of course, because we all think we're acting for the best in every situation. And I fall prey to this. I think I know what the best way forward is. And it's just quite an art, isn't it, to somehow cooperate with the currents in a situation that are the most creative, the ones that are going to be of greatest benefit, to the general situation, and to sort of also use your own judgment. How do you balance those two in a sort of collective situation? So yeah, I guess that's the koan for me about collective Sangha.
Thank you. Come on, Dhamma Kumara.
Yeah. I think it's very easy to think about what it doesn't look like. I really like what Bhante has to say about individuals, groups, and spiritual communities, and how the spiritual community doesn't act like a group, because we're very familiar with group situations, in lots of different aspects of our lives, but the Sangha isn't that. And actually, I think it's difficult to imagine what it does look like, because it's not, it can't be described in group terms. It has an infinite number of manifestations. It will take the shape of the individuals in it, when it comes to be. Although, when I had access to these questions earlier, I was thinking about, well, what does Sangha look like? And I thought, well, I guess at its best, it would look something like the refuge tree, of just like images and enlightenment and bodhisattvas and surrounded by devas. And, experiences like that don't happen very often. You're not very often in an experience, in a situation where things are like that. But it does happen from time to time. I was at a class this week, and one of my good friends, Arya Dharma, was giving this fabulous talk. And I was just looking around the room, and everyone was just so sort of like mouths agape, listening to him talk the Dharma so beautifully. And, and after the class, everyone just wanted to talk about this, and how can I apply this to my life? And what can this look like? And, just tell me more. We couldn't get rid of them. And experiences like that, where I think, this is getting close to what Sangha actually looks like. Yeah, like Samachita says, that where people's own egos and interests have just been completely replaced by something much higher. When we have experience like that, we're starting to get close.
Yeah, thank you, lovely. And I think that's true. I think there's something. It's a real practice, isn't it, to be able to come into collective situations, for example, collective decision making, where you're having to be willing to speak what you believe and at the same time be open to hearing others and allowing yourself to be modified, but without losing your principles or your values. It's a wonderful practice. I mean, I think Sangha is an insight practice in that way, because it really is a way of working very directly with the ego. Okay, so unfortunately, you're such interesting people. I'd love to sit here and chat to you for ages and ages, and there's all sorts of questions popping into my head at the moment, thinking about you all and thinking about what's been said. I can feel my mind kind of going off in lots of directions. But unfortunately, we only have a little bit less than 10 minutes left for the panel, because there's other things to happen this morning. So I'm going to ask each of you just to answer the following question. So we've talked quite a lot about the moment, the present, what Sangha's like for you just now. Looking ahead a little bit, what would you love to see for the Sangha? Now, it could be for your local Sangha, or it could be for Triratna in general. And I know it's a big question for 2 minutes, but, just what comes to your mind? What would you love to see? What would really move your heart to think of when you look ahead for Triratna? So I'll do it in the same order as we started. So start with Artavadin, if that's okay. And I'll time you again for 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Parami. Okay, so what would I like for the future? Well, in some ways, what I'd like for the future is more of what's happening here, which is internationality. I mean, we have the technology now, so I think we can cross borders very easily, the click of a button. So I'd love more of that. And in some ways, well, that is happening. So the future is happening already. It's beginning anyway, and I'd like us to do it really well, so that actually we develop some real connections with each other across the world. But then I'd like to go to the opposite extreme as well, which is I really think for Sangha to grow and develop deeply, I think we need very strong, close personal connections. So I I think what I would like to see in the future in our Sangha is more inspiration, more intimacy, and more intensity. 3 I's really. Inspiration is just people practicing the Dharma more deeply, with a view, with the aim of transcendence, of true freedom. So going beyond the level of the group, going beyond the level of just having a social network. Sometimes that's what the Sangha is, and I would like to see people really using the Sangha as a way of practicing to achieve freedom. Intimacy, I think, is about personal connection, and so it's really getting to know people very deeply, know yourselves deeply, and knowing each other deeply. And I think that's only possible with a few people to do it in that sort of way. And then I think intensity comes out of the 2 other I's, which is inspiration and intimacy. When you're together and you're really focusing on the Dharma, you're both pointing in the same direction, and that's, and speaking Dharma. So that's enough.
Gorgeous, thank you. I like that, the 3 I's. It's easy to remember, isn't it? Great. Okay, so Arya Ketu.
Yeah, can you hear me? I think some here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your sound's a little bit coming and going, Arya Ketu, but yeah, we can hear you.
Hello, am I audible?
Yep, that's perfect. Carry on. I think Arya Ketu has frozen on us, so maybe we'll go to Dhammakumara and come back to Arya Ketu.
Well, we need to reach much more people. There's nothing more that the world needs than the Dharma. And I think often about, when the Buddha said, go and go out to the many people. What was the word he used? The Bahujan. Go to everyone. I live here in Sydney, where there's millions of people, and maybe a couple hundred come to our centre, and they're all very similar kinds of people, actually. There's so much good we could bring to the world, to the universe. Just by reaching more people. I think that's what I'd really like us to see. Really pushing the boundaries of how we can touch people's lives, how we can reach out to more people in different contexts, in different ways, teach the Dharma in ways that are inspiring to different kinds of people, and really make really significant difference in people's lives, in a way that the Dharma really sinks in, that isn't just a sort of, a nice addition to life, but is, really taking people to a different, a transformative place.
Perfect, thank you. Even you'd 30 seconds left, you're doing very well. So we try Arya Ketu again. You froze the last time, Arya Ketu. Are you back?
Yes, I am back. It's just internet was unstable. Thank you very much, Arthawadi and Dhammakumara. I appreciate what you said. And I would like to also share the same story. I remember the Buddha established the Sangha with the 61 monks, and he advised to all the monks, work for Bahujan Hitaya, Bahujan Sukhaya, means work for the benefit of all human beings. We, as an order member, we take this vow at the time of ordination. I really wanted to focus on that. We would like to see that the Sangha in future, but how Sangha can do it? Of course, it's a Bhante's vision, well established in the Sangha. It's a center, community and cooperative. But I would like to say more about the center. I love center. And our center should be a beautiful and attractive, and it's really create the right kind of condition where people comes and get receptive to the Dhamma, they open up themselves to higher ideal. So I don't know, in Nagpur, we have a 3 center and we have a more than 100 order members. And I'm encouraging why we should not have a 10 center, 50 centers in Nagpur. And I don't know, as an international Sangha, everywhere we should have more centers. Again, I must say that it should be the way Bhante described how our center should be. So our center should not be for praise or for to become a chairman or for to have a status. It's a center for the benefit of our all human beings. So this is something I would like to see, to have 1,000 centers in the world. So that's something I love to see. Thank you, Parami.
Thank you, Ariketu. And over to you, Samachita, to end.
Okay. Wow, 1,000 centers in the world. What a vision. Yes. Yeah, I suppose the future, I would hope to see, more of the same, more harmony, more understanding. But with harmony, I don't mean everybody the same, not homogeneity, not everything the same. There's got to be room for difference, including room for oddballs. Let's hear it for oddballs. We don't all want to be the same shape. And I think even including all kinds of different people in the large decision-making bodies, not just the one kind of person. So transcending individual approaches, it's good for everybody. May the look of Triratna in the future, or of the Sangha in the future, be the look of the Bodhicitta. It's not just a particular kind of human look, it's transcending that, and it's for the good of the many. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Well, that is an absolutely beautiful note to end on, Samachita. Thank you. So what I've heard from all of you is we want more depth and we want more breadth. Yeah, we want to reach out, and I'm reminded, of course, of the image of the 1,000-armed Avalokiteshvara, which Bhante has given us as a symbol of our community, and that hands at the heart representing our own practice, which, as Dhammakumara reminded us, if we're not doing that and working on our own mind, then how can we create Sangha? But also the body is our community, and how we make sure that that's healthy and really kind of functioning well. But then, of course, the arms have to stretch out into the world. So more depth, more breadth, more internationality. That's reminding me that it's time for me to be quiet as well. So thank you so much for our panel. And, I'm so grateful that you were willing to come and talk today. And thank you again, Samachita, for jumping in. And I really hope that people have found, as I have, this, what everybody said, so inspiring and thought-provoking. So later on, you'll have the chance to have those thoughts provoked in smaller groups. Okay, so thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next item on our Sangha Day programme. So I'm clapping on behalf of everybody. Okay, so we're going to have a little video in a minute. Before we have the video, I'm just going to say a few words about it. And I think, we've been hearing about the internationality, and I mentioned that I'd been in Merida yesterday. Well, I'd been on a zooming into Merida. So this little video that we're going to see is in fact about the Merida, Venezuela Sangha. And although Sangha is so important to all of us, and everybody that's come today, I'm sure, finds Sangha a really crucial context in their life. But for those of our friends in Venezuela who attend our Sangha there, it's more than that, it's an absolute lifeline. And you probably know that Venezuela is a very difficult place to be at the moment. For the last few years, it's been so difficult for people just to get by, economically, for example. So, we know people who spend a whole month's salary on a bag of maize to just get by and hope that that will see them through a month. It's like this crime, there's spiralling crime. I'm not going to go into the great litany of difficulties that people face there, but I think everybody knows that that's the case. Now, obviously, the Sangha isn't going to be able to necessarily change the political situation, but my goodness, it does make a huge difference for people who are part of the Sangha. You know, they've got friendship, and through the Dharma, they find that they're an oasis really in the city. And I've been in that centre, and it really is an oasis of peace and solidarity in the middle of what's really very chaotic kind of situation. So we're going to have a little video, and then at the end of that I am going to say a little bit, and it is partly a fundraiser. So we are going to ask at the end that you might feel able to give a little bit of cash towards Sangha in Merida and beyond Merida. But please just see the video for what it is as well, which is just a little glimpse, a window into a Sangha that's incredibly crucial for the people there. So I'm going to hand over, I think somebody else is going to show the video, so over to you, whoever you are.
Hola, soy Abhaya Sara. Soy la directora del Centro Budista de Mérida en Venezuela.
Abhaya Sara lives in Merida, which is a city in Venezuela, and she is the chairwoman of the Triratna Buddhist Center there.
Vivimos en una ciudad sumergida en un país donde nos está afectando mucho una crisis política y económica, donde las cosas se están volviendo muy difíciles y sobre todo para los jóvenes.
At the moment in Venezuela, there's a lot of social difficulties, there's a political crisis, and life there is particularly difficult, but in particular for young people.
Y es por eso que aprovechamos la época de la pandemia para hacer una remodelación de la casa, para poder inspirar a las personas que tocan nuestras puertas.
During the COVID crisis, they realized they had an opportunity to restructure the Buddhist Center to make it more adequate and apt to reach out with the Dharma, especially to a lot of these young people.
La razón principal por la cual queremos difundir el Dharma es porque hemos visto que la gente, especialmente en este momento, siente mucha necesidad de acercarse a un camino espiritual.
So at the moment we see a big need, there is a big need there for people to involve themselves with a spiritual path, given the crisis and the problems they have.
Sí, en la planta baja de la casa solía estar una comunidad que ya no formará parte no quedará por fuera, digamos. Y entonces nuestro gran interés se ha puesto en separar las dos plantas y en la planta de arriba poner todo lo que es centro budista. Y ampliamos todos los espacios, con la expectativa de recibir el doble de personas de las que actualmente vienen.
We want to use both spaces for a Buddhist center. What was downstairs was the community which has moved out, and we want to use both of those spaces to be able to reach out to a lot more people with classes, with activities, study groups, etc.
Estoy muy agradecida, súper agradecida por toda la Sangha que ha colaborado, todas las personas que han estado detrás de este proyecto. Y el sábado que celebraremos el Día de la Sangha, espero verlos en línea a todos.
So I'm very, very grateful, and I'm very moved by all the help that we've received. Much more is needed, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all on Sangha Day.
So thank you, that's a lovely wee video. And as I say, interestingly, I was there yesterday, and we had Abhaya Sara officially became the chairwoman of the Sangha, the centre in Merida. And I can personally attest to just how important the work is there that they're doing. And it's a really beautiful Sangha. I mean, if any of you ever get the chance to visit, I'd really recommend it. They're so incredibly welcoming, and the centre itself will be, it already is beautiful, but with the remodelling that's going to happen, it will be really, really gorgeous. So we're really hoping today to raise around £3,000 so that Merida and lots of other Triratna Sanghas around the world can continue the work in reaching out towards others. So if you see in the chat now, there's a little link where you can link and give. Anything at all is helpful. If 75 people, there's around 112 people online. If even 75 of us could give £40, €50, whatever, we could raise that £3,000 today. But please don't think if you can't give that much, you can't give anything. Absolutely anything. The cost of a couple of lattes, the cost of a couple of, I don't know, a meal out with some friends, maybe isn't too much for most of us, but it's a heck of a lot for the Sangha in Venezuela. And it can be put to incredibly good use, not only there, but around the world. Future Dharma is supporting so many different and wonderful projects, including our very own Buddhist Centre Online, without which we would not be here today altogether. So thank you so much. And I'm going to hand back now to Aparajita, I believe. And don't forget to link, just click on the link in your chat and that will take you right to where you can put a little bit into the pot.
We're going to hear and do the transference of merit and self-surrender from our sevenfold puja. Probably most of you know it. If not, it may not entirely make sense, but I think even if the language is a bit unusual, something of the attitude will come through. In a way, it is evoking the Bodhisattva spirit, which was so delightfully conjured up in the panel towards the end, of that outward looking, reaching out to the world, creating Sangha in new places, new communities, reaching more people. So that's really what we're evoking. We're also evoking that sense of selflessness that came up in the discussion, where we transcend, selfishness, self-preoccupation, self-centeredness, and consider ourselves at the service of others. So it's very beautiful. We're gonna hear it first in Hindi. We're not going to go through lots of languages. It's just going to be Hindi and then English. But maybe I'll leave a bit of space in between the lines. And if you want to, in the privacy of your own Zoom room, respond in your own language or in English as you wish, then that's fine. Or you can just listen. So, should we invite Mani Dhamma to do the Hindi version of the transference of merit?
Thanks, Aparajita and the development team. I would like to thank everyone who joined today's Sangha Day celebration and who worked in the background, the development team, to organize everything on this virtual space. So it's amazing. So thanks to all. Now I read the last section of transference of merit in Hindi. एवं सब करके मैंने जो पुण्यार्जन किया है उससे सब प्राणियों का सर्व दुख शमनकारी बनो, जैसे पृथ्वी आदि महाभूत अनंत आकाश पर्यंत व्याप्त अनगिनत प्राणियों के नाना प्रकार से भोग्य होते हैं, वैसे ही आकाश व्याप्त प्राणियों के लिए मैं तब तक नाना प्रकार से उपजीव्य हूं जब तक कि सब शांति का लाभ न कर ले.
Thank you, Mani Dhamma. And now in English, with a little pause in between the lines, if you want to join in. May the merit gained in my acting thus go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. My personality throughout my existences, my possessions, and my merit in all three ways, I give up without regard to myself for the benefit of all beings. Just as the earth under the elements are serviceable in many ways to the infinite number of beings inhabiting limitless space, so may I become that which maintains all beings, situated throughout space, so long as all have not attained to peace. So many thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, very
Thanks,
good.
AJ.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See some of you later on.
Bye. Wonderful to be with you all.
Bye.
Sadhu. Jai Bhim. Jai Bhim.